The phone was pressed so tight against his ear that I could hear every word through our bedroom door. "Baby, I can't wait to get rid of her," my husband's voice carried down the hallway like a knife to my chest. "Once she finds a job and gets back on her feet, I'll file for divorce. I can't stand being married to someone so useless." The woman on the other end laughed, a sound that made my stomach turn. "Just be patient, honey. Soon we'll be together and you won't have to pretend anymore." I stood frozen in our kitchen, clutching the lottery ticket that had changed everything just 3 weeks ago. $47 million. That's what the numbers I'd played every week for 5 years had finally brought me. The same numbers that represented important dates in my life: my birthday, our wedding anniversary, the day I graduated college. The irony wasn't lost on me that the date of our anniversary was now funding my escape from the marriage it represented. My name is Zara and I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, I was a recently laid-off marketing manager worried about our mortgage payments. Today, I'm a multi-millionaire married to a man who thinks I'm worthless. The difference is that he has no idea about the millions, and I plan to keep it that way until I'm ready to disappear from his life forever. But first, I need to know who in my family actually cares about me. The plan started forming in my mind as I listened to him make plans to leave me for his coworker Rebecca. Instead of confronting him or rushing to divorce court, I decided to conduct a little test. I would reach out to my family members and close friends, telling them I was in serious financial trouble and needed help. I would see who offered genuine support and who made excuses. The lottery ticket was my secret, and it would stay that way until I knew who deserved to be part of my new life. I spent that night researching how to claim my prize anonymously. In our state, winners could claim through a trust, which meant I could collect my money without my name being plastered all over the news. I set up meetings with lawyers and financial advisors in the next city over, telling my husband I was job hunting when I left for these appointments. The first person I called was my older brother Jerome. We'd always been close growing up, or so I thought. "Hey Jerome, I'm in a really tough spot," I began, practicing the story I'd rehearsed. "I've been out of work for a month now and we're behind on the mortgage. I hate to ask, but could you possibly help us out with maybe $2,000? I'll pay you back as soon as I find something." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Zara, you know I'd love to help, but things are really tight right now. We just bought the new car and the kids need so much for school. Maybe you could ask Mom and Dad." I thanked him and hung up, my heart sinking but not surprised. Next was my sister-in-law Patricia, who was always posting on social media about her expensive vacations and designer handbags. "Oh honey, I wish I could help, but we just spent so much on the house renovations. Have you tried applying for government assistance?" One by one, I called people I thought cared about me. My cousin who'd borrowed $5,000 from me just 2 years ago claimed he was between paychecks. My best friend since college suggested I sell my car. My parents were supporting your brother through his business struggles and couldn't spare anything. Each rejection felt like a small death, but I kept careful notes of every conversation. I was documenting not just their responses, but their tones, their excuses, their suggestions that I handle my problems alone. These were people I'd helped countless times over the years. I'd paid for my cousin's wedding flowers, loaned Patricia money for her down payment, and helped my parents with their medical bills just last year. Then I called my youngest sister Imani. She was only 28, working as a teacher and barely making ends meet herself. I almost didn't call her because I knew she was struggling, but I wanted to complete my test. "Zara, oh no, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said immediately. "I don't have much, but I can send you $300 right now, and I'll ask around to see if anyone has job leads for you. Do you need groceries? I can bring some over tonight." For the first time in weeks, I felt tears of something other than betrayal. "Imani, you don't have to. Family takes care of family," she interrupted. "I'll figure out the rent thing later. You need help now." That night, as my husband continued his phone calls with Rebecca in our bedroom, I sat in the kitchen making plans. Imani was the only one who'd offered real help without hesitation. She was the only one who would be part of my new life. The next morning, I started the process of claiming my lottery prize. The rejection from my family stung worse than I expected, but it also gave me clarity I'd never had before. Over the next few days, I continued my financial crisis act while secretly meeting with lawyers to set up my trust fund. The contrast between my family's cold shoulders and Imani's warm support became more obvious each day. My husband Robert was the worst of all. When I told him about calling my family for help, he exploded with anger that I hadn't expected. "You did what? You told them we were struggling? Do you know how embarrassing that is for me? I work hard to maintain our reputation, and you're out there begging like we're some kind of charity case." I thought we were a team, I said quietly, watching his face twist with disgust. A team? Zara, you've been unemployed for a month. You contribute nothing to this household except stress and bills. The least you could do is handle our problems without dragging our personal business into the street. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Here was a man planning to leave me for another woman, angry that I was seeking help from family during what he believed was a genuine crisis. The cruelty was breathtaking. Maybe I should look for a job in another city, I suggested, testing his reaction. His eyes lit up in a way that confirmed everything I'd overheard. Actually, that might not be a bad idea. A fresh start could be good for you. For both of us. That afternoon, while Robert was at work presumably planning his future with Rebecca, I drove to the lottery headquarters in the state capital. The building was smaller than I'd imagined, just a regular office complex that happened to house life-changing amounts of money. I'd formed a trust called New Beginnings LLC, and was claiming the prize through that entity to protect my identity. The lottery officials were professional and efficient. After taxes, my lump sum payment would be just over $28 million. They explained the process, the timeline for receiving the money, and how the trust would work. In 2 weeks, I would officially be one of the richest people in my entire extended family, and none of them would know it. We see this more often than you might think, the claims officer said as I signed paperwork. People who want to keep their wins private. Smart, actually. Protects you from people who might suddenly become very interested in your friendship. If only she knew how accurately she was describing my exact situation. While I was signing papers that would change my life forever, Imani was texting me job leads she'd found online. She'd sent me 17 different listings that morning, each with a personal note about why she thought I'd be good for the role. She'd also convinced her principal to let me substitute teach if I needed quick income. The difference between her support and everyone else's rejection was stunning. My parents had called that morning not to offer help, but to suggest I move in with them, temporarily, to save money. When I mentioned that would be difficult with Robert, my mother had said, "Well, maybe this crisis will help you prioritize what's really important." The message was clear. Fix your own problems, don't expect help, and maybe reconsider your marriage while you're at it. It was advice I was definitely taking, just not in the way they expected. My brother Jerome had actually gotten worse. He'd called Robert directly to discuss my situation behind my back. According to Robert, Jerome had suggested that I might be having some kind of emotional breakdown and that Robert should keep an eye on me. The betrayal was complete. My own brother was more concerned about his reputation than my well-being. That evening, I cooked dinner and listened to Robert talk about his day. He mentioned Rebecca several times, supposedly in professional contexts, but I could hear the excitement in his voice when he said her name. They were planning a work conference the following month that would require an overnight stay in another city. The lies were so transparent it was almost insulting. "How was your day?" he asked, barely looking up from his phone. "I had a good interview," I lied smoothly. "It's with a company about 3 hours from here. If I get it, I might need to relocate." He tried to hide his smile but failed. "That sounds like a great opportunity. You should definitely pursue it. It would mean leaving everything behind. Starting completely over. Sometimes that's exactly what a person needs," he said, still not looking at me. "Fresh start, new people, new possibilities." He was practically pushing me out the door, not realizing I was already planning to walk through it. The difference was that I'd be walking into a life of financial freedom while he'd be left with nothing but his lies and his affair with Rebecca. Before bed, I texted Imani to thank her for the job leads. Her response came immediately, "That's what sisters do. We'll get through this together." For the first time since I'd overheard Robert's phone call, I smiled genuinely. Imani was right. We would get through this together, and she was going to be amazed when she found out exactly how well things were going to turn out for both of us. Robert's behavior became more brazen each day, as if my supposed financial troubles gave him permission to stop pretending he cared about our marriage. He started coming home later, claiming he was working overtime to help with our money problems, but I could smell Rebecca's perfume on his shirts. The same floral scent I'd noticed when they worked late together last year, back when I was naive enough to believe his explanations. I found receipts in his pockets for restaurants I'd never been to, flowers I'd never received, and hotel rooms charged to our credit card. When I confronted him about the hotel charge, he claimed it was for a client meeting that ran late. It was cheaper than driving home and back for the morning meeting, he said without even looking up from his phone. The lies were becoming so ridiculous that I started keeping a detailed record of everything. Every receipt, every late night, every story that didn't add up. My lawyer had advised me to document everything for the divorce proceedings, though she didn't know I was funding her fees with lottery winnings. What hurt most wasn't the cheating itself, but how cruel he'd become. When I mentioned that Imani had offered to help us, he sneered with disgust. Your sister can barely afford her own rent and she's trying to help us? That's just pathetic. You both need to face reality instead of playing these little support group games. She's being kind, I defended. She's being stupid. Just like you are if you think begging from family is going to solve anything. You need to get a job, Zara. Any job. Stop being so picky and start contributing something to this household. The irony was devastating. I was worth almost $30 million, and he was lecturing me about getting any job to contribute to our household expenses. If he only knew that I could buy our house outright with what I'd earn in interest each month. But his cruelty served a purpose. Every harsh word made it easier to plan my departure without guilt. Every time he rolled his eyes when I mentioned struggling financially, every time he suggested I lower my standards or move back with my parents, he was making my decision simpler. I started preparing for my exit strategy in earnest. The lottery money would be available in my trust account within 10 days. I'd already researched beautiful homes in North Carolina, far enough away to start completely over but close enough that Imani could visit easily if she wanted to be part of my new life. There was a stunning house outside Charlotte that had everything I'd ever dreamed of. 6 bedrooms, a pool, 3 acres of land, and complete privacy. The price was $1.2 million, which would have been impossible on my old salary but was now just a small fraction of my winnings. I could pay cash and still have more money left than most people see in a lifetime. The real estate agent thought I was pre-approved for a mortgage and kept talking about financing options. I let her assume whatever she wanted while I planned my cash purchase through the trust. Meanwhile, Imani continued to be my only source of genuine support. She'd started bringing groceries by twice a week, refusing to let me pay her back. You can get me next time, she'd say, though we both knew she couldn't afford to spot me anything. Her kindness was breaking my heart and strengthening my resolve at the same time. She was also the only person asking how I was handling everything emotionally. This has to be so stressful, she said during one of her visits. Not just the money stuff but everything. How are you and Robert dealing with the pressure? I almost told her everything right then. About the lottery win, about Robert's affair, about my plans to disappear and start over. But I wanted to wait until I could show her the new house and the new life I was building. I wanted her to see that her loyalty and love had been rewarded in the most amazing way possible. We're managing, I said instead. Things might change soon. Good. You deserve better than all this stress. She was right, and she had no idea how much better things were about to become. That night, Robert didn't come home at all. He texted at midnight saying he was staying over at his friend's place, because he'd had too much to drink at a work event. The friend he mentioned was male, but I knew he was with Rebecca. The lies were so transparent it was almost insulting. I spent the evening online, researching business opportunities in North Carolina. With my marketing background and unlimited funding, I could start any kind of company I wanted. Maybe a consulting firm, maybe something in real estate, maybe a nonprofit to help women in situations like mine. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in months, I felt excited about the future instead of dreading it. 10 days until the money was available. 2 weeks until I could make an offer on the house. 1 month until I could disappear completely and start the life I actually wanted. Robert had no idea he was sleeping next to a multi-millionaire who was planning to vanish from his life forever. The thought should have made me sad, but instead it made me smile. The day my lottery money became available was the most surreal day of my life. I sat in the bank president's office, watching him process the transfer from my trust account to my new personal accounts, and tried to act normal while becoming one of the wealthiest people in the state. $28,400,000, minus the taxes I'd already paid. More money than I could spend in several lifetimes, sitting in accounts that Robert knew nothing about. Congratulations, Mrs. Johnson, the bank president said, shaking my hand. Welcome to our private wealth management program. Your advisor will be in touch within the week to discuss investment strategies. I drove home in my old Honda, the same car Robert had been complaining about for months, and parked next to his BMW in the driveway of our mortgaged house. The contrast between my new reality and my apparent situation was almost funny. That afternoon, while Robert was at work planning his future with Rebecca, I called the real estate agent in North Carolina. I'd like to make an offer on the Charlotte property, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Wonderful. What kind of financing will you be using? Actually, I'll be paying cash. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Cash? The full $1.2 million? Yes. How quickly can we close? Within an hour, I'd made a full-price cash offer on the most beautiful house I'd ever seen. The sellers accepted immediately and we scheduled closing for 2 weeks out. I would own $1 million home before Robert even realized I was planning to leave him. But the house was just the beginning. I spent the next few days setting up the infrastructure for my new life. I opened business accounts for the consulting company I planned to start. I researched the best private schools in North Carolina, not because I had children but because I was thinking about Imani. Her teaching skills would be valued anywhere, and the private schools near my new house paid twice what she was making now. I also started looking into investment properties. With this much money, I could buy rental homes and generate passive income that would last forever. I could travel, start charities, help other women escape bad situations. The possibilities were overwhelming in the best way. Meanwhile, my fake financial crisis continued to reveal people's true characters. My cousin called that week, not to check on me, but to ask if I was still planning to come to his birthday party next month. When I mentioned I might not be able to afford the gift I'd planned to buy, he suggested I just make something homemade instead. This from someone I'd loaned $5,000 to for his wedding. My parents had stopped calling altogether after I mentioned possibly moving to find work. They seemed relieved that I might become someone else's problem. But Imani's support never wavered. She'd started applying for weekend jobs to earn extra money to help me. When I found out, I nearly broke down crying. Here was my little sister, already working 60 hours a week as a teacher, trying to take on more work to support me through what she believed was a crisis. "You don't have to do that," I told her. "Yes, I do. Family takes care of family, and you're the only family that's ever really taken care of me." She was right about that. When Imani had wanted to go to college, our parents said they couldn't afford it. I'd worked 2 jobs to help pay for her education. When she needed a car for her first teaching job, I'd co-signed the loan. When she'd gotten sick last year and missed work, I'd helped with her rent. Now she was trying to return that loyalty, not knowing that I was about to be able to take care of both of us for the rest of our lives. Robert's behavior, meanwhile, was getting worse every day. He'd started openly criticizing everything about me. My appearance, my job search efforts, my negative attitude about our situation. Last night he'd actually said, "I don't know why you're so stressed. It's not like you were making that much money anyway." The comment was so cruel and dismissive that I'd gone to bed early just to avoid saying something I'd regret. But it also confirmed that leaving him was the right choice. This was who he really was when he thought I needed him most. I'd already contacted a divorce attorney, though I hadn't filed papers yet. I wanted to be completely moved out and settled before he knew what was happening. The lawyer assured me that with proper documentation of his affair and our assets, the divorce would be straightforward. What Robert didn't know was that the only assets he'd be getting were the ones that existed before my lottery win. The house we lived in, his car, his retirement account, his half of our small savings account. Everything I'd built with my winnings would be mine alone, since it all came after his decision to cheat and leave me. 2 weeks until I closed on my new house. 1 month until I could move out completely. 6 weeks until Robert came home to an empty house and divorce papers. The countdown had begun and I was getting more excited every day. Imani's goodness was breaking my heart. Every day brought new examples of her selfless support, and every day made me more excited to share my secret with her. She'd started packing lunches for both of us, claiming she was meal prepping anyway to save money, but I knew she was making sure I ate well during my supposed financial crisis. She'd also found clothes that didn't fit her anymore, and brought them over, though I recognized them as new items with tags carefully removed. The most touching moment came when she showed up at my door with a small envelope. "I know you said you didn't need money," she began, looking embarrassed, "but I sold some of my books and craft supplies. It's only $200, but maybe it can help with groceries or gas or something." I stared at the envelope, knowing it represented enormous sacrifice from someone who was already struggling. Imani loved her books and her art supplies. They were her only luxuries and she'd given them up to help me. "I can't take this," I said, my voice shaking. "Yes, you can. I don't need all those things. You need help right now, and this is what I can do." I hugged her tightly, fighting tears. In less than a week, I would own a house worth more than what most people make in 20 years, and my sister had sold her treasured possessions to give me $200. The contrast was almost unbearable. That night, I made a decision. I started shopping online for the most beautiful art studio setup money could buy. Professional easels, every type of paint and brush available, canvases, storage systems, lighting equipment. I spent $15,000 creating an artist's dream workspace, all to be delivered to my new house in North Carolina. I also researched the school districts near my new home. There was a private academy that paid teachers $90,000 a year, nearly double what Imani was making now. They had an opening for next fall in elementary education, exactly her specialty. I printed out the job posting and put it aside for the right moment to share it with her. Meanwhile, Robert's cruelty reached new heights. He'd started bringing up my failure to find work in casual conversation with friends and neighbors. At a barbecue last weekend, he'd announced to everyone that I was going through a tough time and couldn't contribute to the group gift for our host. The public humiliation was clearly intentional, designed to make me feel small and dependent. Maybe you should consider retail or restaurant work, he suggested loudly enough for others to hear. Sometimes we have to lower our expectations when times get tough. I smiled and nodded, imagining how his face would look when he discovered I could buy the restaurant, the retail store, and probably the entire shopping center they were in. His affair with Rebecca was becoming more obvious too. They'd started taking business trips together, and he'd stopped even pretending to hide his phone calls with her. Last night I'd heard him promise her that this situation with Zara is temporary, and that he'd be free soon. He was right about being free soon, just not in the way he expected. The closing on my new house was scheduled for Friday. I'd arranged to sign all the paperwork remotely through my lawyer, so Robert wouldn't know I was buying property. The house would be empty and waiting for me, a secret sanctuary 3 states away from all the people who'd shown their true colors during my test. I'd also started making arrangements for my exit. I'd hired a moving company that specialized in confidential relocations. They would pack everything I wanted to keep while Robert was at work, load it onto a truck, and have it delivered to North Carolina the same day. I would disappear completely, leaving behind only what belonged to him and what reminded me of this painful chapter of my life. But first, I wanted to make sure Imani knew she was invited to be part of my new beginning. I might be moving soon, I told her during one of her grocery deliveries. Her face fell immediately. Moving? Where? Why? I've been thinking that maybe a fresh start would be good. New city, new opportunities, new life. But what about Robert? What about your family here? Robert and we're not in a good place right now. And as for family, I've learned recently that most of them aren't as supportive as I thought they'd be. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm supportive. I'll always be supportive. I know you will. That's why I'm hoping you might consider coming with me. Her eyes widened. Coming with you? But my job, my apartment, my life is here. What if I told you there might be better opportunities somewhere else? Better job, better pay, better everything? She looked confused but interested. I don't understand. If you're having money problems, how could you help me find better opportunities? What if I told you that my situation might not be what it appears to be? Zara, you're talking in riddles? What's going on? I almost told her everything right then. About the lottery, about Robert's affair, about the house I just bought, about the new life waiting for us. But I wanted the reveal to be perfect. I wanted to show her the house, the art studio I'd created for her, the job opportunity, the complete transformation of our circumstances. Just trust me for a little while longer, I said. I promise everything will make sense soon. She studied my face for a long moment. Okay, I trust you. But Zara, whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together. Yes, we will. Together. 3 more days until the house closing. 2 weeks until I could move. 1 month until Imani saw exactly how much her loyalty and love had meant to me. The best part of my plan was about to begin. The house closing went smoothly, and I officially became the owner of $1.2 million worth of North Carolina real estate without Robert suspecting anything. While he was at work, I drove to the bank and transferred the money from my trust account, then spent the afternoon online furnishing my new home. I bought everything I'd always wanted but never could afford. Italian leather furniture, a professional kitchen setup, artwork, a home theater system, and of course the complete art studio for Imani. But owning the house was just the first step. I needed to document everything about Robert's affair and his treatment of me during my supposed crisis. My divorce lawyer had been clear. Evidence would make the process faster and more favorable for me. I started systematically photographing receipts I found in his pockets. Dinner for 2 at expensive restaurants while I was supposedly struggling to buy groceries. Hotel rooms charged to our credit card on nights he claimed to be working late. Florist charges for arrangements I never received. The pattern was obvious and damning. I also began recording our conversations on my phone. In our state, single-party consent made this legal, and his own words were building a clear case of emotional abandonment. Yesterday's recording was particularly revealing. I don't understand why you're being so negative about everything, he'd said when I mentioned feeling stressed about money. Maybe if you put as much energy into finding work as you do into complaining, we wouldn't be in this situation. I've been applying everywhere, I'd replied, which was technically true since I'd been applying to various things for my new life. Well, maybe you need to be more realistic about your worth in the job market. You've been out of work for 2 months now. That's not exactly impressive to employers. The cruelty in his voice was clear on the recording. This from a man who was spending our money on his girlfriend while lecturing me about contributing to household expenses. The most damaging evidence came from his phone calls with Rebecca, which he'd stopped trying to hide completely. Last night, I positioned myself outside our bedroom door and recorded 15 minutes of their conversation. I can't wait until this is all over, he told her. Living with someone so pathetic is exhausting. She just mopes around the house all day feeling sorry for herself. Maybe you should just file for divorce now, Rebecca had suggested. I want to wait until she gets a job or moves back with her parents. I don't want to look like the bad guy who abandoned his wife during a crisis. Once she's stable, I can say we just grew apart. The manipulation was breathtaking. He was planning to abandon me, but only after making sure he looked like the reasonable one. Meanwhile, he was calling me pathetic to his girlfriend and planning their future together. I saved every recording, every photo, every piece of evidence in multiple locations. Cloud storage, external drives, copies with my lawyer. When the time came, there would be no question about what had happened in our marriage. Meanwhile, Imani's loyalty continued to amaze me. She'd started bringing dinner by 3 times a week, always with enough leftovers for me to have lunch the next day. When I protested that she was doing too much, she brushed off my concerns. You helped me through college, she reminded me. You co-signed my car loan. You've been there for every important moment of my life. This is just me returning the favor. What she didn't know was that her favor was worth more than all the money I'd spent helping her over the years. Her loyalty during this test period had shown me who she really was, and it made me more excited than ever to share my secret with her. I'd started making concrete plans for both of us. The private school near my new house had officially offered her the position after I'd submitted her resume and portfolio. They were impressed with her credentials and excited to have her join their team for the fall semester. The salary was $89,000, plus benefits plus a signing bonus. I'd also researched the area thoroughly and found the perfect apartment complex for her if she wanted her own space, though the house had plenty of room for both of us. There was a vibrant arts community, museums, galleries, and creative opportunities she'd never have access to in our current small town. Robert, meanwhile, had started making his own plans. He'd begun talking casually about me starting fresh somewhere else, and had even offered to help me research apartments in other cities. His eagerness to get rid of me was so obvious it would have been hurtful if I wasn't planning to disappear anyway. There are some nice places about 3 hours south of here, he'd suggested over dinner. Good job market, lower cost of living. Might be perfect for a new beginning. That sounds promising, I'd agreed, not mentioning that I'd already bought a house 4 hours southeast and would be taking nothing from our current life except my clothes and personal items. 2 weeks until I could schedule the moving company. 3 weeks until I disappeared completely. 1 month until Robert came home to an empty house and divorce papers. But first, I wanted to plan the perfect reveal for Imani. She deserved to know that her kindness and loyalty were about to change both our lives forever. Everything was falling into place perfectly. The moving company was scheduled, the house was furnished and ready, and I'd arranged for all my personal documents to be transferred to my new address. But the most important part of my plan was still ahead, making sure Imani understood she was invited to share in this new life I was building. I'd prepared everything like an elaborate gift reveal. The job offer from the private school was printed on beautiful paper and placed in an elegant envelope. Photos of the house, the art studio I'd created for her, and the surrounding area were organized in a professional portfolio. I'd even researched graduate programs at nearby universities in case she wanted to advance her education. But first, I needed to handle the final details of my departure. The divorce papers were ready to be filed. My lawyer had reviewed all the evidence I'd gathered, and she was confident we had a strong case for emotional abandonment and adultery. Since all my lottery winnings had occurred after Robert's decision to cheat and leave me, they would be considered separate property in the divorce. He won't be entitled to any of your lottery money, she'd explained. Especially with the evidence showing he was planning to leave you before he knew about the winnings. In fact, he still doesn't know about them, which works in your favor. The timing was crucial. I needed to move out and file for divorce before Robert realized I had any money. Otherwise, he might try to claim he deserved part of my winnings, despite his affair and abandonment. I'd also made arrangements for my exit that felt like something from a movie. The moving company would arrive at 8 in the morning on a Tuesday when Robert was at his weekly breakfast meeting with clients. They would pack everything I wanted to keep, load it onto the truck, and be gone by noon. I would follow them to North Carolina, where everything would be unloaded into my new house by evening. Robert would come home to a house that looked normal except for my absence. My clothes would be gone from our closet, my personal items removed from our shared spaces, but everything else would remain exactly as it was. On the kitchen table, I would leave a simple note and the divorce papers. The note was already written, short and direct. Robert, I'm starting the fresh beginning you suggested. The divorce papers explain everything else. Please have your lawyer contact mine. Sir. No accusations, no anger, no drama. Just a clean exit from a marriage that had died the moment I heard him planning my replacement. But before any of that happened, I needed to tell Imani the truth. I invited her over for dinner on Sunday night, claiming I had important news to share. She arrived with groceries again despite my protests and insisted on cooking for me. You've been so stressed lately, she said, bustling around my kitchen. The least I can do is make sure you eat well. As we sat down to eat, I could barely contain my excitement. Everything I'd planned for months was about to come together, and the most important part was sharing it with the one person who'd proven she truly cared about me. Imani, I need to tell you something, I began, my hands shaking slightly. And I need you to promise you'll hear me out completely before you react. She put down her fork and looked at me with concern. Zara, you're scaring me. What's going on? First, I need you to know that everything you've done for me these past few months has meant more than you'll ever understand. Your loyalty, your kindness, your willingness to sacrifice for me when everyone else turned away, it's shown me who you really are. Of course I helped you. You're my sister. But here's the thing, I continued, reaching for the envelope containing her job offer. I haven't been completely honest about my situation. Her face clouded with confusion. What do you mean? Imani, 3 months ago I won the lottery. $47 million. The silence stretched between us like a bridge. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open as if she was trying to process words that didn't make sense. You what? I won the lottery. But I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to see who would help me when they thought I had nothing. I wanted to know who really cared about me. You've been rich this whole time? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. And you're the only person who offered real help. You're the only one who proved that you love me for who I am, not what I can give you. I handed her the envelope. This is a job offer for you. At a private school near the house I bought in North Carolina. The salary is $89,000 a year. She opened the envelope with trembling hands, reading the offer letter twice before looking back at me. You bought a house? A beautiful house with 6 bedrooms, a pool, and 3 acres. And I built you an art studio because I know how much you love painting and how you gave up your supplies to help me. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. Zara, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know who I could trust with my new life. And you've proven that I can trust you with everything. She was quiet for a long moment, processing everything I'd told her. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with wonder rather than anger. So when you move away, you want me to come with you? Only if you want to. I know it's a big change, but Imani, we could have an amazing life together. You could teach at a school that values you, pursue your art, maybe go back to school if you want. Money would never be a worry again. And Robert? Does he know about any of this? Robert is planning to divorce me for his coworker Rebecca. He has no idea about the money and he never will. I'm leaving him on Tuesday. She reached across the table and took my hands. You've been planning all of this by yourself? I've been planning it for us. If you want to be part of it. Of course I want to be part of it. Zara, you're the most important person in my life. If you're building a new life, I want to build it with you. The relief I felt was overwhelming. Everything was going to work out exactly as I'd hoped. There's just one more thing, I said, reaching for my phone. I need to show you the house. For the next hour, we looked through dozens of photos of our new home. Imani cried when she saw the art studio, laughed when she saw the pool, and gasped when she saw the master suite I'd decorated just for her. This is really happening? She asked. This is really happening. Tuesday morning couldn't come soon enough. Tuesday morning arrived with perfect weather, as if the universe was celebrating my escape. I woke up before my alarm, packed my final personal items, and waited for Robert to leave for his weekly breakfast meeting. He kissed my forehead absently on his way out, probably already thinking about Rebecca, completely unaware that he would never see me again. Have a good day, he said, not looking back. You too, I replied, knowing it would be anything but good for him. The moving company arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, just as Robert's car disappeared around the corner. The team leader was professional and discreet as promised. They'd done this type of confidential move before and understood the importance of speed and thoroughness. "We'll have everything loaded within 4 hours," he assured me. "Your items will be delivered to the North Carolina address by 6 tonight." I watched them work with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. These men were literally packing up my old life and preparing to transport it to my new one. Every box they carried out felt like another step toward freedom. I'd been strategic about what to take. My clothes, personal items, photo albums from before my marriage, my college diplomas, and sentimental things that belonged only to me. Everything else, the furniture we'd bought together, the decorations we'd chosen as a couple, the shared items that represented our failed marriage stayed behind. The movers were gone by 11:30, taking my entire past with them. I walked through the empty spaces where my belongings had been, saying goodbye to the life I'd thought I wanted. Our bedroom looked strange without my jewelry box on the dresser. The closet looked hollow without my clothes hanging next to his. The bathroom counter was bare without my makeup and skincare products. But instead of sadness, I felt lightness. Each empty space represented freedom from pretense, freedom from a man who didn't value me, freedom from a family that only cared about me when I could benefit them. I placed the divorce papers and my note on the kitchen table, exactly where Robert would see them when he came home. Then I took one final walk through the house, not mourning what I was leaving behind, but celebrating what I was walking toward. Imani was waiting in her car outside, her own belongings packed and ready for our new adventure. She'd given her notice at school, received an overwhelmingly positive response from her new employers, and arranged for her apartment lease to be transferred to her cousin who needed a place. "Are you ready?" she asked as I got into my car. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." We drove away together, a 2-car convoy heading toward our new beginning. In my rearview mirror, I watched our old neighborhood disappear, but I didn't feel nostalgic. I felt victorious. The drive to North Carolina took 6 hours, and we spent most of it talking on our hands-free phones about our plans for the future. Imani was most excited about the art studio and the chance to teach at a school that valued creativity. I was excited about everything: the house, the business I planned to start, the freedom to travel, the opportunity to help other women in bad situations. "I still can't believe this is real," Imani said as we crossed the state line into North Carolina. "It's real. We're really doing this." "What do you think Robert's reaction will be when he gets home?" I've been wondering the same thing. Probably shock, then anger, then panic when he realizes he's lost his safety net. He was planning to leave me anyway, but he thought he'd get to control the timing and the narrative. "Do you think he'll try to find you?" "Maybe at first. But once he realizes I'm serious about the divorce and that I'm not coming back, he'll probably be relieved. He can be with Rebecca without any complications." "What about your parents and Jerome? What will you tell them?" "Nothing at first. Let them wonder where I went and why I disappeared. They made their choices when they refused to help me. Now they can live with the consequences." As we drove through the beautiful countryside approaching our new town, I felt more at peace than I had in years. Everything that had seemed like a crisis 3 months ago had actually been a gift. The lottery win, Robert's affair, my family's rejection, it had all led me to this moment of complete transformation. The house looked even more beautiful in person than it had in photos. Imani pulled into the circular driveway behind me and stepped out of her car with tears in her eyes. "Zara, this is incredible. Come see your art studio." I led her through the house, watching her face light up at every room, every detail, every sign of the new life we were building together. When I opened the door to her studio, she gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. "You did all this for me? You sacrificed for me when you thought I had nothing. This is what you get when someone appreciates your loyalty." The moving truck arrived just as the sun was setting, and by 9 o'clock, all my belongings were in our new home. Imani and I ordered pizza and sat on the floor of our beautiful new living room, planning our future and laughing about our escape. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we build the life we actually want. No more pretending, no more settling, no more people who don't appreciate us." "And Robert?" "Robert is about to learn what happens when you take someone's love for granted." By the time we went to bed that night, Robert had probably been home for hours, staring at the divorce papers and wondering how his perfect plan had gone so wrong. But that was his problem now. We had a new life to start. Our first week in North Carolina felt like a beautiful dream that I kept expecting to end. Every morning, I woke up in my gorgeous master bedroom, looked out at our 3 acres of land, and remembered that this wasn't temporary. This was our new reality, paid for with money that would last us several lifetimes. Imani had settled into her new space with obvious joy. Her art studio had become her favorite room in the house, and she'd already started 3 new paintings inspired by our move. The natural light from the large windows made everything she created look professional and vibrant. "I never knew I could paint like this," she said, showing me her latest work. "Having proper supplies and space makes such a difference." "That's what money is for," I replied. "To remove barriers and let people become their best selves." Meanwhile, my phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts from my old life. Robert had tried calling 47 times in the first 2 days, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails that evolved from confusion to anger to panic. "Zara, what the hell is going on? Call me back immediately," was the first message. "This is insane. You can't just disappear and file for divorce out of nowhere. We need to talk," was the 10th. "Fine, if this is how you want to handle things, my lawyer will be in touch. But this is crazy even for you," was the 20th. By the 40th call, his tone had changed completely. "Zara, please call me back. I don't understand what happened. Maybe we can work this out." I didn't return any of his calls. My lawyer was handling all communication, and there was nothing left to discuss. He'd made his choice when he decided to cheat and plan to leave me. Now he could live with the consequences. My family's reactions were equally predictable. My parents called, worried that I'd done something rash, and asking if I needed them to come help me think clearly. Jerome texted asking if I was having some kind of breakdown, and suggesting I might need professional help. The irony was perfect. When I'd needed help, they'd all been too busy or too broke to assist me. Now that I'd disappeared and they were worried about looking bad, suddenly they were concerned about my well-being. I sent one group text to all of them: "I'm fine. I'm starting a new life in a new place with people who actually care about me. Please respect my decision." The responses were immediate and telling. My mother wanted to know where I was and demanded I call her. Jerome wanted to know if this was about money and offered to help me figure out my finances. My father asked if Robert had done something wrong and suggested I shouldn't make permanent decisions based on temporary problems. None of them asked if I was happy. None of them congratulated me on my new beginning. They were all focused on what my decision meant for them and their image of our family. But Imani and I were building something beautiful together. She'd started her new job at the private school and was already being praised by administrators and students alike. Her salary was more than she'd ever imagined earning, and she was saving money for the first time in her adult life. "The other teachers are so supportive," she told me over dinner one night. "And the resources available for creativity and education are incredible. The students actually want to learn." That's what happens when you work somewhere that values what you bring to the table. I'd started my consulting business and was already being approached by companies who needed marketing expertise. The freedom to be selective about clients and projects was liberating. I could choose work that interested me rather than whatever paid the bills. But the most satisfying part of our new life was the peace. No more walking on eggshells around Robert's moods. No more pretending to struggle financially while watching him waste money on his affair. No more dealing with family members who only contacted me when they needed something. Instead, Imani and I spent evenings planning trips we wanted to take, discussing books we wanted to read, and dreaming about the future we were building together. We were both thriving in ways that would have been impossible in our old lives. 3 weeks after our move, Robert's lawyer contacted mine with a settlement offer. He was willing to give me the house, his retirement account, and alimony if I would agree to an uncontested divorce. The offer was laughably inadequate considering I could buy a dozen houses like ours with my lottery winnings, but it showed how desperate he was to end things quickly. "He wants to remarry as soon as possible," my lawyer explained. "Apparently, his girlfriend is pressuring him to make their relationship official." "Let him sweat for a while," I replied. "I'm in no hurry." The truth was, I wanted Robert to fully understand what he'd lost before I agreed to finalize anything. I wanted him to realize that his plan to leave me for Rebecca had backfired completely. He'd thought he was trading up for someone better, but instead, he'd lost the woman who could have given him everything. 1 month after our escape, I finally told Imani the full amount of my lottery winnings. We were sitting by our pool, drinking wine and watching the sunset over our property. "I need to tell you something else about the money," I said. "There's more?" she laughed. "The lottery ticket was worth $47 million. After taxes, I received $28,400,000. She was quiet for so long that I thought she hadn't heard me. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with awe. $28 million? Yes. Zara, That's more money than most people see in their entire lives. I know. And you're the only person who will ever know the full amount. Why are you telling me? Because I want you to understand that our future is completely secure. We never have to worry about money again. We can travel anywhere, do anything, help anyone we want to help. The world is completely open to us. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for proving you could be trusted. As we sat there watching the sun set over our new life, I felt completely at peace for the first time in years. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new adventures, and new possibilities. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged, with the one person who had proven she truly loved me. The revenge was complete, but more importantly, the new beginning was just starting. 6 months after our escape to North Carolina, life had settled into a rhythm more beautiful than I'd ever imagined possible. Imani was thriving at her new school, her artistic talents were flourishing in her studio, and my consulting business was growing beyond my expectations. We'd found our place in the community, made new friends who knew us only as successful women starting fresh, and built a life that felt authentic and joyful. But our old life wasn't quite ready to let us go. The calls and texts from Robert had finally stopped after I'd had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter. The divorce was proceeding smoothly, with him agreeing to everything my lawyer requested in his desperation to marry Rebecca quickly. My family had given up trying to contact me directly, though I occasionally heard through mutual friends that they were telling people I'd had some kind of breakdown and disappeared. Then, on a Thursday morning in late spring, everything changed. I was reviewing marketing proposals for a client when Imani burst into my home office with her phone in her hand and excitement written all over her face. "Zara, you need to see this," she said, holding up her screen. It was a Facebook post from our hometown's community page. Someone had shared a local news article with the headline, "Local Woman's Lottery Win Revealed After Mysterious Disappearance." My heart stopped. The article included a photo of me from my old job, details about my $47 million win, and speculation about why I disappeared right after claiming the prize. Apparently, someone at the lottery office had leaked my information, despite the trust structure I'd used to claim anonymously. How did they find out? Imani asked. I read the article quickly, my stomach sinking as I realized the implications. Someone at the lottery office must have recognized me from around town and talked to a reporter. Or maybe Robert figured it out and went to the press. The article was mostly factual but included quotes from friends and family members, who claimed to be worried about my well-being and confused about my sudden departure. Jerome was quoted saying he hoped his sister was safe and would reach out when she was ready. My mother expressed concern about my sudden behavior change, and said the family just wanted to know she was okay. The hypocrisy was stunning. These were the same people who'd refused to help me when they thought I was struggling, now presenting themselves as loving family members worried about my mysterious disappearance. But the worst part was at the end of the article, where Robert was quoted extensively. "I'm shocked to learn about the lottery win," he said. "Zara left without any explanation, filing for divorce out of nowhere. If she was struggling with sudden wealth, I wish she had come to me for support. I loved her and would have helped her through whatever she was going through. I hope she finds the happiness she's looking for." The lies were breathtaking. He presented himself as a confused, loving husband abandoned by a wife who couldn't handle sudden wealth. There was no mention of his affair, his plans to leave me, or his cruel treatment during what he thought was my financial crisis. "This changes everything," I said to Imani. "What do you mean?" "Now everyone knows about the money. Every family member who refused to help me, every friend who made excuses, everyone who showed their true colors, they all know I was testing them." Within hours, my phone started buzzing with calls and texts from numbers I hadn't heard from in months. Jerome called 6 times in the first hour. My parents called, my cousin called, old friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to catch up. Even Patricia, my sister-in-law who'd suggested I apply for government assistance, sent a long text about how she'd always believed in me and hoped we could reconnect soon. But the most persistent caller was Robert. His messages had returned, but with a completely different tone. "Zara, I understand everything now. You must have been so overwhelmed by the money and scared to tell anyone. I should have been more supportive. Please call me so we can talk. I know I wasn't perfect, but we can work through this. Money doesn't have to change everything between us. I've been thinking about us a lot and I realize I made mistakes. Let's put the divorce on hold and figure this out together." The manipulation was obvious and pathetic. Now that he knew about the money, suddenly he wanted to work on our marriage. Rebecca was apparently forgotten in his rush to reconnect with his wealthy ex-wife. I showed the messages to Imani, who shook her head in disgust. He's not even trying to be subtle about it. The money changes everything for him. Just like it changed nothing for you. That afternoon, I made a decision that felt both necessary and liberating. I would respond to everyone's sudden interest in reconnecting, but not in the way they expected. I spent the evening crafting a single social media post that would address everyone at once and set the record straight about what had really happened. I wrote it carefully, choosing each word to make my point clearly without being cruel. I'm sure many of you have seen the news about my lottery win and are curious about my sudden departure from town. I want to set the record straight about what really happened. 6 months ago, I discovered that my husband was having an affair and planning to leave me for his coworker. Around the same time, I won the lottery but decided not to tell anyone about it immediately. Instead, I reached out to family and friends, telling them I was struggling financially and needed support. The responses I received showed me exactly who in my life truly cared about me. Most people I'd helped over the years suddenly had no money to spare and plenty of advice about lowering my expectations. Only one person, my sister Imani, offered genuine help despite having very little herself. So I made a choice. I took my lottery winnings and my sister and started a new life with people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. To those who are suddenly interested in reconnecting now that you know about the money, ask yourself why you didn't care about reconnecting when you thought I had nothing. I'm happy, successful, and surrounded by people who love me unconditionally. That's worth more than all the lottery money in the world. I won't be responding to calls or messages from my past. I'm too busy building my future. I posted it simultaneously on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, then turned off my phone and went to sit by the pool with Imani. Do you think that was too harsh? I asked. I think it was perfect, she replied. Honest but not cruel. You told the truth and gave them exactly what they deserved. Over the next few days, the post was shared hundreds of times and received thousands of comments. Most people praised my decision and shared their own stories about discovering who their real friends were during difficult times. A few family members and old friends tried to defend themselves in the comments, but their explanations only made them look worse. Robert made one final attempt to reach me through my lawyer, claiming the social media post had damaged his reputation, and asking for a chance to explain his side of the story. My lawyer's response was simple. The divorce would proceed as planned and any further contact would be considered harassment. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Robert got exactly what he'd been planning to leave me with before he knew about the lottery, half of our small savings account, his car, and his retirement fund. I kept everything else, including all my lottery winnings and the new life I'd built. The last piece of news I heard about my old life came from a mutual friend who called to tell me that Robert and Rebecca had broken up. Apparently, once Rebecca realized that Robert wouldn't be getting any of my lottery money in the divorce, she decided she needed space to think about what she really wanted. Robert had lost everything: his marriage, his girlfriend, his reputation, and any chance of benefiting from my good fortune. He gambled on leaving me for someone he thought was better and lost completely. Meanwhile, Imani and I were planning our first international trip together. We decided to spend a month in Italy, where she could study art and I could explore potential business opportunities. We had travel plans for the next 2 years, business ventures we wanted to start, and a life full of possibilities ahead of us. As I sat in my beautiful home, looking out at our pool and gardens, I felt grateful for every part of my journey. The betrayal had hurt, but it had led me to this moment of complete freedom and authentic happiness. The lottery win had been lucky, but the real prize was discovering who truly loved me and building a life with only those people. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at people who wronged you. Sometimes it's simply living so well without them that their absence becomes irrelevant. And that's exactly what Imani and I were doing, living beautifully, authentically, and completely on our own terms. The story of my old life was over. The story of my new life was just beginning, and it was going to be amazing.